ironic that an agency with security in its name stands for internet systems to be unsecure. They claim to fight against crime, but they will not guard where they know you are vulnerable. Proposition will end this today. Definitions. Zero-day vulnerabilities are security gaps in the coding of software, arising from flaws that go undetected by coders. 0 days can then be used to compromise software and perform a myriad of functions, from extracting important information to shutting the software down entirely. They are found by hackers who continuously test software for errors. These may be hackers who are altruistic white hats working for legal organizations, or private individuals that sell the 0 days they find on the dark web. State entities like China and North Korea are all known to have the capacity and precedent of buying and using 0 days, meaning the use of 0 days can have a global impact. The National Security Agency buys from the dark web too, no thank you, and also directly employs white hats to form an in-house team to search for 0 days. Therefore, on proposition, the NSA should notify software manufacturers of all 0 days in their stockpile. This means we also support NSA hackers actively looking for 0 days to inform manufacturers. With this, manufacturers will fix gaps in that code that led to the vulnerability. For instance, Apple rolled out a mandatory update for iPhone users 12 hours after vulnerabilities were found in its FaceTime application. In line with this, the American government should also criminalize and actively prosecute the sale, no thank you, of 0 days on the dark web. We support other organizations and white hats combating 0 day exploits like Project Zero that links tech companies like Google with academic institutions like Harvard to find 0 days to patch. Now, obviously, the NSA can still protect national security through a range of measures such as traditional methods like searches with warrants. Case divide. Hold on a moment. First, on invasiveness of 0 days undermining privacy. Second argument, protecting users worldwide from cyber attacks. And thirdly, my second speaker will argue about preventing the silencing of the political voice. Yes?
If a federal judge orders Apple to open up secure messages from suspected terrorists and give them to FBI investigators, and Apple refuses, should the FBI try and open the messages by force?
If they have the mandate of the people that is checked upon by the public and the courts, we think the NSA is perfectly justified in opening this pool. Back to my argument. My first argument will be on how the invasiveness of 0 days undermine privacy. Premise: the internet world contains a lot of our most private information. Financial records stored in digital bank archives, health records stored by insurance companies, and countless private conversations we have with those we are the closest to. 0 days are weaknesses in the systems that store this information. Without a patch, information is vulnerable not just to the NSA, but to other nefarious actors, including hostile foreign governments. This matters because privacy is integral to our lives. Our identities do not exist in a vacuum and are only meaningfully assessed in their interactions with one another. Hence, people should be able to define the boundaries of their interaction, hold on a moment, and keep a part of themselves safe and away from the rest of the world. Yes?
The reason the FBI can monitor phone lines in the US is because the phone line is an outdated and flawed piece of technology. The FBI basically exploits a vulnerability in the phone line. Should the FBI stop monitoring criminals' phone conversations even when they have a warrant?
If they have a warrant and the public knows that they are already using the tapping of phone lines to uncover criminals, then we are perfectly alright with this continuing. The only problem is that 0 days, as I'll mention later, cannot be checked upon by the public. Because think about it, if you review what 0 days you have, then companies can patch it already. So they must always be confidential. Back to my argument. This is especially so when vulnerable information is left unprotected. A HIV patient ostracized because a data breach at a local hospital outed him. A Muslim family at risk of being thrown into concentration camps because the Chinese state used WhatsApp conversations and location data to expose their faith. It is no better even in the US, where NSA agents were revealed to have been rating images of nude women gathered through vulnerabilities in Apple's iCloud. Now, opposition may claim that all of this is for national security, but they need to prove the exclusive need for 0 days because there are alternatives that do not represent such a massive infringement of privacy. For instance, metadata gathering, which is what the second point of information is about, can tell us who and how long you are calling, but just not the contents of the call, which we think should be private information. Traditional methods like home searches require legal warrants that can be challenged in court. No thank you. These are also transparent protocols that can be checked upon by the public, but the use of 0 days must be confidential to be effective. Furthermore, the benefit to national security is uncertain, but the harm to privacy is certain, and we much rather protect crucial rights in the vast majority of time. My second argument, we protect users worldwide from cyber attacks. My first argument dealt with the use of vulnerabilities to extract private information. This argument will explain how they can be used as a direct tool of cyber warfare. Thus, on the grounds of national security, not patching 0 days is a greater threat. Premise, 0 days can be exploited in a cyber warfare. There are two ways. One, when a malicious actor owns and uses it. This occurs because popular software like Windows have entire communities of hackers dedicated to finding 0 days, and the same vulnerability could be uncovered by different individuals. The second way is when NSA-owned 0 days are stolen and used. This will happen since espionage is commonplace in spying agencies, and the NSA themselves have been the victim of multiple hacks. No thank you. This was the case for the Eternal Blue 0 day stolen from the NSA by North Korea. It is a bug in Microsoft's Windows operating system, and it was responsible for one of the most crippling cyber attacks known as the WannaCry exploit, shutting down internet systems around the world, including of the British National Health Service, for over 36 hours. This left patients stranded, no thank you, and emergency operations halted when hospitals were already overcrowded. Crucially, the NSA would not know who has or when the 0 days may be deployed. Hence, they cannot prevent such cyber attacks. In the case of Eternal Blue, no one knew North Korea had it or when they were going to use it. The significance is much of our infrastructure is based off the internet, and a cyber attack can be disastrous. This looks at attacks on our democracy, such as Russian hacking into voter registration systems to deny democratic votes. Even worse, the Pandaware attack shut reactors in Ukraine for over a day, in a harsh winter month where many froze to death without heating. With the rise of state-sponsored cyber warfare, we have not seen the worst yet, as entire stock markets and welfare systems could be permanently crippled. Our solution is to prevent damage from being done in the first place. The NSA will review and work with manufacturers to patch up software defects. Often, these are large tech companies well trusted by consumers like Google, IBM, and as with their point of information, Apple too, making them valuable targets. They thus have the incentive and capability to rapidly fix vulnerabilities like mandatory patch fixes updated automatically onto your software systems. There's also a synergistic effect here at play. We can patch other vulnerabilities of a similar nature, while also closing off an exponential number of exploits, since usually a few 0 days must be used together to break and enter software. Because the moral code of humanity should never be tampered with, we propose.
Thanks for the speech. I'd like to call upon the first officer to share a short word.
It is true that a zero-day vulnerability is a dangerous piece of information. It is also true that governments often need dangerous pieces of information. We trust governments with dangerous things as they can be used to protect us. And just as we think governments should be able to commandeer property, money, or men if national security demands it, governments should be able to retain 0 days if doing so can protect society. What do we support? We think the US government should have the right to keep them secret and keep the option of using these 0 days as weapons whenever they decide that doing so can protect security and save lives. Whenever this is not the case, we would be happy to warn manufacturers and help them fix the problem. Right now, the NSA notifies manufacturers in about 80% of cases. We would obviously warn manufacturers when any vulnerability which put a significant number of US citizens at risk and which would not be useful as a weapon
Point.
such as reading secret communications sent by terrorist organizations through messaging apps like WhatsApp or Signal, and tools to attack software routinely used by rogue states. It's not enough for Singapore to point to some vulnerabilities which should be fixed, because we will probably agree. This debate is about the difficult cases, where 0 days will not put US citizens in danger, but will help us fight terrorism and rogue states. Singapore have to defend fixing all 0 days, even when doing so endangers national security. In our three arguments, we're going to talk about difficult cases where they protect national security. We're required to come to you under the Team 9 that 0-day vulnerabilities are powerful, unintrusive, non-violent tools which can save thousands of lives. Three arguments. 1, why 0-day vulnerabilities help fight terrorism. 2, why they protect us from rogue states. And 3, in our second speech, why 0-day vulnerabilities protect us from powerful geopolitical adversaries. No, thank you. But before that, I have 4 points of rebuttal. First, on their point about privacy. Second, on their point about hostile states and actors.
Point of
Third,
information.
thank you on their eternal blue example. And fourth, on their response to our POIs. So to the first, avoid people's right to privacy. 2 responses. We support governments obtaining warrants from judges before spying on their citizens, as they conceded in the vast majority of cases. This can be done in secret. It's standard practice in most liberal democracies. No one will be deprived of rights without due process. But secondly, the intrusion of your messages being read is minuscule compared to the intrusion of losing a loved one or being blown apart in a terrorist attack. Second point of response on hostile states and actors. Hostile states. 3 responses to this. First, the US is simply the best country when it comes to cyber warfare. That's because the level of expertise in US companies and universities is unmatched anywhere in the world. Just look at how much more profitable the US industry is than Chinese and Russian industry. It will take Russia and China years to catch up with the US, and it will be years before they discover the 0 days that the NSA already knows about. Second response. Another reason you find that the US has better cyber warfare capacity than hostile actors is that Congress literally gives the US military more money than it knows what to do with. Defense spending is increased by hundreds of billions every time the Republicans want to cut on defense. Trump gave the military 33% more money than it asked for in his first budget. No, thank you. Every department, therefore, including the NSA and cyber warfare divisions, is better funded than any rival on Earth. The US spends more money on defense than the next 26 countries combined. Third response. Simply that the best way to protect ourselves against future cyber attacks is to deter these actors from carrying them out. This means we should make our own cyber weapons as strong as possible so they know that we can retaliate if we want to. Keeping 0 days gives us more power to attack Russia and China, and therefore more power to deter them from attacking us. So on the hackers and hostile actors they also talked about, we know that hackers look for 0 days, but the point is they aren't sophisticated or rich enough to find the ones that the NSA rely on. In fact, Eternal Blue was found by the NSA and was then stolen from inside it. However, the NSA worked to tighten post-Snowden and post-Manning, so we feel that this is not an issue. Now, moving on to my third point of rebuttal, their response to our POIs. We asked if they should force Apple to release data, and we asked about listening to Phone 9. They said yes to both of those things with the mandate of the people. This means that they agreed that it is a good thing and often legitimate and useful for governments to break into software of private citizens. That means they just conceded the debate. Moving on to my fourth point of rebuttal, about their Eternal Blue example. This was already patched, and a patch was issued 3 months, before the attack happened. The problem, therefore, is that people simply don't update the patch, and therefore users are still vulnerable. For their policy to be effective, Singapore would have to send an NSA agent to every American home and watch over their shoulders as they update their software to prevent invasions of privacy that Singapore so values. So, first argument, why 0-day vulnerabilities help fight terrorism? If the NSA can break into communications apps like WhatsApp and Signal, they will be able to save American lives by uncovering terrorist networks, catching and catching lone wolves radicalized and trained online. No, thank you. If a young man becomes radicalized, it's very easy for him to use secure messaging apps to get in touch with handlers who tell him which weapons to use, which crowds to target, and make sure he never strays from his murderous mission. Note that reading these secure messages is the only way to prevent murderous attacks. If a terrorist plans to drive a truck into a crowd or buy a gun legally in the US, there will be no way of catching him in advance unless messages are monitored, because the whole atrocity was planned solely on Pakistani children killed in drone strikes, but the US will continue to escalate its war on terror because it is so terrified of further attacks. Before I move on to my second point, I'll take a point. Okay. Second argument, why zero-day vulnerabilities protect us from rogue states? In 2010, US cyber attacks sabotaged Iranian centrifuges. Iran lost most of its capacity to enrich uranium. It failed to develop a nuclear bomb. It certainly saved Israel from the threat of a nuclear
Point of
bomb.
information.
Thank you, I gave you your opportunity. This attack was possible because Iran used an outdated version of Windows software, vulnerable in a way only the US knew about. In Singapore's world, this would not have been possible because they would have patched the very software that made Iran vulnerable. That's not all. In 2017, a North Korean missile which could have killed thousands in Japan or South Korea blew up during a test. There's speculation that a US cyber attack sabotaged it, and by removing that weapon from a brutal dictator, saved thousands of lives. This is all possible because rogue states tend to use outdated, vulnerable software because their poor, isolated economies can't develop complex software. That means there are probably hundreds of zero days ticking time bombs inside the Iranian and North Korean militaries. By keeping the option of sabotaging that software, the US can sabotage those deadly regimes. But if software manufacturers start to patch these defects and offer upgrades, those nations can switch to new, more complex software. Team Singapore's world is one in which the US is powerless to sabotage rogue states. It has to use cruder tools. It has to unleash all the horrors of airstrikes and intervention with thousands of civilian casualties. It has to send more troops to Korea, perhaps unleashing a wave of shelling across the border, killing thousands. We prefer cyber attacks to that kind of fire and fury. We prefer to use zero-day vulnerabilities. Zero-day vulnerabilities are powerful, unintrusive, non-violent tools that can save thousands of lives. We oppose.
Thank you for your speech, and we'd like to call upon the second proposition speaker.
We trust governments with dangerous pieces of information. No. We actually don't. Like in the vast majority of cases in the developed world, we don't trust governments with dangerous pieces of information. That is why search warrants remain to be a thing. That is why police officers can't just enter homes with impunity. Because if side opposition really stood for their policy, they wouldn't be giving that policy. What they would really be standing for is governments being able to enter without the checks and balances that currently exist. Which is why the model they gave was so incredibly peculiar. Because honestly, I think they're cherry-picking their examples here. They don't even give us a strong reason or a strong line to draw as to when the NSA will release some 0 days and when they won't. But moreover, I'm not sure the NSA has this capability to do so because no one is looking over the shoulders of the NSA. But given their logic, I suggest that the NSA is more likely to be paranoid and more likely to hide some 0 days because of the fact that they want to impose and protect national security. But given the fact that on their side of the house they refuse to tell us what exactly they're going to do, I think they've been incredibly disingenuous with the motion and been cherry-picking thus far. The main attack on our policy was people won't update their phones. Okay guys, I think we can very easily do this. Kenneth already explained to you why on our side of the house, we can already have things like forced updates, especially if the NSA comes to a company and says, hey, here's a patch, you will do so, if not, you might actually face legal repercussions. In fact, it's in the world of the proposition where we can make them legally responsible for something if they don't patch something that we specifically asked them to do. I'm going to talk about two things in this speech. First, I'm going to discuss privacy and their lack of engagement with Kenneth's argument, and second, I want to talk about national security. No, thank you. So first, on privacy, Kenneth gives you a myriad of reasons as to privacy matters, and I think people are very deliberate with their responses. It's not just about like me reading my messages. I think it's incredibly personal information as well. So for example, when my sexuality, or whether or not I'm HIV positive, given your medical history. But I think also, on all of this analysis, the only response that they got was governments have the ability to have checks and balances, and we can have to fight terrorism. I have a couple of responses to that. The first is, zero-day vulnerabilities are incredibly specific. I don't actually think governments use them to fight terrorism, because think about it, and if you look in the real world, if they were as powerful as side opposition intended them to be, we'd be stopping a lot more terrorist attacks than we currently are. The fact that the government allows some terrorist attacks to happen suggests that terrorism is not the majority of cases where governments use these zero-day vulnerabilities in the first place. But for these situations, Kenneth explains to you why we have other alternatives, like metadata collection, which tells you, for example, who you're calling and why. And the crucial difference here is that there is the consent of the people. So here's a good example of this. If you wanted and the people of the United States did not like metadata collection, they could vote in their representatives and ask them to vote against the Patriot Act. But there is no such thing on their side of the house, because there is a mechanism in order to prevent the NSA from using zero days of impunity. The problem is that this meeting and discussion with various stakeholders has never been used. And the reason is because they can't have a federal judge look at confidential information at a constant rate. And the fact that if they do want to do this, you need high-level security clearance, which massively shrinks the benefits on their side of the house, because not a lot of people have access to this. So to be very clear, all of Kenneth's arguments for privacy still stand. I don't think they respond to it. Second question then, on security. This is where the main bulk of the debate lies. And it's actually rather dangerous for them to not engage with a good proportion of this. So, before I move on, yes?
Would you make all of the NSA's operations transparent to everyone?
No, madam. What we would say, however, is it's immoral for the NSA to literally use the people around the world as literal human shields by exposing their data and not giving them any consent as to how they're going to carry out this information. So let's continue here. I think the only response that they get on security is just China and Russia are miles behind. Okay, first of all, I'm not even sure that's true. They just asserted this in a claim. But even if that was true, I'm not so sure why that means that China and Russia are now unable to attack us, considering that we are literally leaving the doors open on their side of the house, which means that these groups are still able to attack us regardless of what happens. But I think here there's a crucial weighing mechanism that must be carried out between defense and offense. And here, we explain to you in first speaker, and I'm going to give you more layers as to why you ought to prioritize defense. The first is consent. Obviously, we're not going to use human beings with their lives as human shields in order to ensure that we have some variation of security. The second is that the impacts of a cyber attack, especially in a digitally connected world, are immense. So for example, people literally freezing to death because of a lack of heating. For example, people literally being unable to get to doctors on time because of the fact that the National Health Service has shut down. These are massive impacts on the lives of individuals who they don't even know what side opposition is doing to them. But I think moreover on this argument, they really genuinely miss the point, because their argument is we can strike back into these rogue nations. I have a couple of responses to this. The first response that I have to this is, why don't we just patch ourselves, and that serves as a strong enough deterrent against these nations attacking us? Why do we need to go through the whole deterrence point where we let them attack us first before we attack them back? I think it's just significantly more simple that we defend ourselves in the beginning. But moreover, Kenneth explains to you that with the way in which zero-day vulnerabilities work, patching one group of zero-day vulnerabilities means you're able to patch other groups, because now companies are incentivized to look at 0 days of a whole swath that are similar to that kind in a system. All of these reasons suggest that companies have a very strong incentive to protect themselves, and also means that they mitigate against the harms of cyber attacks on our side of the house. The reason as to why all of these arguments are important is because it explains to you why we ought to prioritize the defense of citizens around the world over their mere offensive capabilities that we're not particularly sure have strong impacts. I'm now going to move on to my team's third and final argument on how we prevent the silencing of the political voice. The thesis of this argument is that patching 0 days helps defend dissidents in illiberal regimes by taking away their methods of information control. And recognize that this argument takes side opposition at their best. Because even if the United States government were trustworthy, which it really isn't, we believe that there are significantly more people, billions literally, around the world globally who don't have that privilege. The first premise of this argument is that regimes use 0 days to control their people. So with the rise of the internet, especially typified in the Arab Spring, many regimes fear the democratizing power of the internet. This also means that they cannot use human intelligence, as these methods are limited by how well dissidents are able to hide their views. Recognize that a spectrum of illiberal regimes exist. Iran and China have no qualms of spying and tracking their people. On the other end of the spectrum, nations with authoritarian tendencies, for example Hungary, Malaysia, or even unfortunately Singapore, have some variation of control over their own people. So on the former category, 0 days, no thank you madam, are targeted and effective at finding pathways into computer systems, making them one of the best tools for spying. This is important because the confidentiality and unpredictability of this information means that one might not even know of their use against, say, mass surveillance, that a dissident would know the boundaries of. This makes them incredibly useful for groups. On the latter category, because illiberal regimes are not able to always use mass surveillance because they don't have control over every sector, 0-day exploits are often used in order to sneak typing software into these areas. So for example, a British technical service group was used to sneak political surveillance software into political dissidents in Egypt, Bahrain, Ethiopia, and Malaysia. All of this was used as potential blackmails and smears. So for these reasons, 0-day vulnerabilities are a unique tool in the oppression of people around the world, and getting rid of them will cripple oppression significantly. This is important because it means we protect free speech and we protect the safety of dissidents from being hunted by their governments. On a moral level, this is the most important part of the debate because these individuals are the most vulnerable. But moreover, the NSA has a strong moral obligation to carry out this policy because, as they said, they're the only actor that's most directly able to solve the problem of billions of people getting persecuted by their governments. We believe that the moral code of humanity should never be tampered with. We're proud to propose.
Thank you, and we'd like to call on the second.
In 2016, Russia attacked the foundations of the American state when it attacked the presidential election. It's clear that Russia is a great threat to the US and that the US needs tools to protect itself. It's also clear that China's immense power might make a threat in the future, and we ought to act now to protect ourselves from this future threat. I'm
Point of information.
The company do a risk analysis and would show whether it would be most beneficial to leave them or take them, would they often leave them. But secondly, we think they are patched by issuing updates to consumers who often don't update. You can't just do a forced update. The way these software works means that people have to click accept. And Eternal Blue wasn't caused by the NSA not for racism. The NSA they've been out for 3 months and people just didn't update. So we think this means this doesn't work for their side. And then in response to responding to their case, so in response to their model, it tells us that we can't pick and choose our examples on when we support the NSA keeping zero-day vulnerabilities because it's a very secretive and unaccountable organization. 3 responses. If proposition have the ability to make the NSA do something, presumably so do we. If you want them to follow your model, we also want them to follow our own clear criteria, which we gave you first. We have
Point of information.
the same ability on either side. We would say the NSA is still secretive in your world, it just doesn't have the same effective non-violent tools as on our side. In your world, in response to rogue state, CIA or NSA will just recommend drone strikes. In our world, we get this non-violent solution. Thirdly, it's just obviously impractical to take every top secret national security decision in public democratically. And all democracies acknowledge this, and therefore they give their government intelligence agencies a certain amount of discretion. We are happy to defend the NSA similar discretion on these very specific areas when they can follow a clear set of rules and save lives in doing so. On to their first point on privacy. Our first week already gave 2 responses, and I have 3 more. First, if the city was being attacked and the government had to defend it, the government ought to have the right to destroy buildings to give its troops a better field of fire or stop fire from spreading. It should also be able to
Point of
go operations
information.
to deny them to the enemy. Clearly, the government has the right the government has the right to make decisions in these ways and to violate privacy and property in order to protect national security. We would reiterate that the privacy and that people are violated far more by any effects which come from proposition side than they are when privacy is violated.
Point of information.
No, thank you. And then when you tell us about protection from cyber attacks, we have 3 more responses to this. Firstly, it's unlikely that the US's enemies will find zero-day vulnerabilities which the NSA has found, because the US is vastly technologically superior to other countries or hackers. And we told you this at first, and we'd like to reiterate it now. The fact that China is still using Windows 10 on their computers suggests that they aren't, and so the fact that they are still hacking through, and the fact these countries are still hacking people's passwords and doing these things suggests they are not at the stage they can use zero-day vulnerabilities. And we would say that the level of technical expertise in US companies is unmatched in the rest of the world. Just look at how much more profitable US industry is in China.
Point of information.
No, thank you. And finally, they tell us that tech companies will cooperate with the NSA to help them do terrorist messages. We would say that tech companies know that defying the NSA and FBI and standing up for consumers' privacy gets them great publicity. Apple CEO Tim Cook won lots of praise when he refused to unlock the iPhone of a mass shooter in San Bernardino. Secondly, tech companies might lose loads of customers if it was widely known that they hand over customers' messages to the government. We don't think they cooperate in these ways. Thirdly, we would say that lots of Silicon Valley companies are genuinely libertarian and outlook and don't have the idea of a big brother monitoring their network. On to their final point about silencing the political voice. We say that we think the NSA are in a better place to look at where people are being oppressed when they have access to these zero-day vulnerabilities. And we would secondly say that it's perfectly reasonable to suggest Russia and China and other rogue states and terrorists can get spies inside these companies much more likely than they can get them inside the NSA because of the kind of vetting, the difference in the kind of vetting.
Point of information.
Therefore, when people in these countries get oppressed, they're much more likely to get oppressed on your side. So on to our point about how might zero-day vulnerabilities help protect the US from Russia and China. 2 scenarios to consider. First, the US might discover a zero-day vulnerability that gives them access to important Russian or Chinese software. Second, the US might discover a stolen software which is built in America, which is used extensively by the Russian and Chinese governments. In both cases, this gives the US the power to attack or disrupt Russian and Chinese activity. There are 3 ways in which this might be incredibly useful. First, it gives the US the power to respond aggressively to any Chinese and Russian cyber attacks. If China attempts to interfere in the US election, the US will have to find some way to respond, or else it will invite far more attacks in the future.
Information.
In our world, the US has the tools to respond in a way which is proportional and avoids escalation. Crucially, our response will be non-violent and avoid economic disruption. Whereas in Singapore's world, they would have to resort to painful and costly economic sanctions or even military response. I'll take a point.
Wouldn't it be just significantly easier to have prevented the entire attack in the first place by patching the zero-day vulnerability that caused it?
So we think you're working on the assumption that companies will always patch. And we have seen in the past this just isn't true. We have also we've seen the companies who don't do this. We've also seen that users don't cooperate either. So we don't think this works in this way. In Singapore's world, the users might have to send more troops or ships into China's backyard, risking an accidental exchange of fire and troops between nuclear powers shooting at one another. Or it might sanction China, inviting a trade war that will destroy thousands of jobs. It's either that or they ignore China's cyber attacks and leave their citizens in security unprotected. Second way is, in the event the US needs to use economic sanctions against another superpower, zero-day vulnerabilities mean they can be done in a targeted and effective way. Sophisticated cyber attacks are used to freeze individual bank accounts or track down accursed assets. This is hugely important because in both the Russian and Chinese state, billionaire oligarchs and princes enjoy huge influence, and the best way to sanction the state is often to sanction powerful people who are close to the decision makers. In our world, when mutant oligarch cronies have journalists murdered, we can use cyber attacks to identify and sanction their assets. That's a crucial weapon in deterring future attacks. In Singapore's world, we just can't do this. Thirdly, zero-day vulnerabilities can provide the US with timely intelligence about things that China and Russia are planning. In the event that Russia wants to launch attacks on Ukraine and the Baltic states, the US will have time to warn its allies and prepare a response. 6.2 million people live in the Baltic states alone. In our world, we use zero-day vulnerabilities to identify things that threaten them and act to protect their liberty and even their lives. Team Singapore's policy, in contrast, leaves them at the mercy of people. Panel, we support keeping zero-day vulnerabilities because they will save the lives of citizens. We oppose.
Thank you, and we call on the third problem.
Vulnerability we spotted in their case was when they decided to cherry pick in their policy. Gareth told you why this was so problematic, because the fact that they under-explained a policy that was meant to caveat out and try to buffer out all the harms or the propensity for abuse that Kenneth talked to you about showed that they weren't really exactly clear what they were standing for or how they were accruing the benefits. And over here, I'm going to push this analysis even further and prove to you why it's so damaging to their case when they told you can only patch some 0 days. Because if you cared so much about the lives of people who could die in terrorist attacks, you would keep all 0 days because you never know when these 0 days will become helpful. So team opposition needs to choose between saving civilian lives or that disingenuous policy that was supposed to cover out the kind of harms that Kenneth talked to you about. So the fact that they are unable to pick between both and they're trying to have their cake and eat it already shows they're really a bad foot in this debate. So three main questions are asked. So firstly, are patches effective? Secondly, are cyber attacks justified tools for warfare? And finally, on whether or not they do counter terrorism. So firstly, on whether or not patches are effective. I'm going to spend less time on this clash because they were obviously just doing scattershot attacks at this policy. So they told you that companies would just chuck away some of the 0 days. Firstly, that's an unrealistic portrayal of what companies would do. We think there's no incentive to do so. Because once they are unable to guarantee cybersecurity, they will lose their consumer base. And so because of the profit incentive of companies, they are likely to just chuck away the 0 days. Secondly, they told us that users don't download these updates, and that's why they're still be vulnerable to attacks. No, we told you this is not true right from kernel, where you say that you can update this kind of software independent of users, example through automatic updates. So we don't think that their policy attacks are really that true. And so now moving on to our second question on whether or not cyber warfare is a justified tool for warfare. So let's break this down premise by premise. The very first premise they told us is that China and Russia are weak. The second premise is, hence because of their weakness, deterrence will be effective. And finally, in their conclusion, they try to overclaim their benefits about how they have very proportional warfare. So on the first premise of whether or not China and Russia is weak, Gareth already responded to this point when he told you that this is just simply not true. The fact that China and Russia were responsible for WannaCry, PETIA, and not PETIA, the ransomware attacks that crippled the NHS, that crippled banking systems. And so they cannot just say that they cannot just assert to us that China and Russia that do not have any form of military capacity whatsoever. And then moving on to the second premise, where he told us because of China and Russia's weakness, hence this kind of there will be effective deterrence. We told you that it's not true that there is deterrence, and just because the NSA stockpiles 0 days, it will result in other countries being scared and not wanting to attack the USA. Because we think that a lot of countries, when they commit cyber attacks, they outsource the job to non-state actors in order to hide their involvement. For example, the Chinese government is suspected to have outsourced the exploitation of 0 days to the hacker group Gothic Panda when it was involved in the WannaCry attack. Hence, the difficulty in retaliating erodes the entire basis of deterrence that they were trying to argue for, because there's no prospects of punishment when in the cyber realm. It's difficult to attribute who is responsible for the cyber attack. And so now that these two premises are gone, I'm going to deal with the crux of their case, where they tried to overclaim all their benefits to cybersecurity. And so they told us that we'll be able to deal with geopolitical adversities, but then in the kind of attacks that we have are going to be surgical and they're going to be very effective. We told you that this is not true, and there are in fact alternatives to 0 days that can achieve the same surgical attacks that they wanted. For example, you can have fighter jets that can emit radio waves that are powerful enough to jam computers in military bases, rendering these computers useless without civilian damage. Under the side of the house, the shining bright examples they gave us are startlets and the blowing up of North Korean missiles. But hey, when you blow up a nuclear missile, what happens to the radioactive material that leaks to nearby villages? Or what happened? And when they told us about startlets, it's not true that there was no civilian damage, because the malware that existed in startlets ended up spreading to civilian computer networks. Hence, we think the entire point about how they're able to have much more justified war is simply not true. And so why are they better? Because we can achieve the exact same benefit as team opposition without the harms associated with 0 days, such as the invasion of privacy that we told you in Kenneth, and cyber attacks onto civilians, something that we told you in Kenneth, it was unresponded to, and finally, how they exacerbate oppression, a substantive that Gareth forwarded to you, which they were unwilling to deal with. And the second portion of this part, where they try to overclaim their benefits, is that opposition is trying to force us into this false dichotomy between military strikes and cyber attacks. We think this is unfair of them to do so, and to do this. We think cyber attacks tend to be employed against developed countries that have a greater reliance on digital infrastructure, and especially so when there is no international law punishing cyber attacks. Hence, we think it's unlikely that cyber attacks will be used in the countries that we want to talk about, like Syria, because now that they are ravaged by warfare, there isn't much of a digital infrastructure to attack and to have maximum damage upon. But even if we take opposition's best case scenario, the 0 days exploits are used in violent conflicts. We think military strikes are still going to happen under their side of the house because of the massive influence of the military-industrial complex and the level of investment the US has already poured into weapons and drones. And because of this high sunk cost, it's unlikely that, like what they claim, the US would ditch all the drones and ditch all the weapons that they're using and just rely on cyber attacks alone. And hence we think the kind of benefits they are trying to overclaim is simply disingenuous and very simplistic of the question. And so now moving on to, yes ma'am.
If the NSA won't obey our criteria, why will they obey yours?
We think that we have fiat to impose this policy on the NSA. This is the entire point of this. This is the reason why this became into place in the first place. And so now moving on to the final way I'm going to make over here, of and why we would rather prioritize digital defense over offensive capabilities like team opposition. We told you right from Kenneth that we would rather prioritize the certain harm of privacy invasions over the uncertain benefits of national security yielded from zero-day vulnerabilities. And in Gov, we told you how, under the set of the House, when they wanted to use 0 days selectively, the frequency at which the benefits accrue are marginal. And we want to weigh these marginal benefits against the kind of massive harms that accrue when you have cyber attacks on the US and its various allies. And the final way I want to forward over here is that just like how we should not attack civilians in conventional war, we would rather patch up 0 days to protect civilian netizens from becoming human shields in cyber wars. And it's unjust to implicate civilians in any war, be it physical or cyber, because he never consented to the risk associated with it. That taxi driver who died in an accident because the traffic lights flickered to a halt on him never consented to being implicated in the cyber war. The patient struggling to stay alive, but the oxygen supply died on him because of the cyber attacks, never consented to die in such an unjust manner. And hence we clearly take this point on who battles cybersecurity and saves civilian life. And now we on to this final pledge, which I'm spending a way less time on because you dropped it in the second speaker, about countering terrorism. We see that there's a spectrum of terrorist attacks, and when there are extensively coordinated attacks, they leave large paper trails, and hence we can use metadata, something that we support under our side of the House, to be able to crack down on these attacks. And so the only terrorist attacks that are left under the side of the House are lone wolf attacks, but these attacks have very low impact and low likelihood. And because the moral code of humanity should never be tampered with, I am so proud to propose.
Had an extremely high burden in this debate. They had to say that all 0 days should be released regardless of the consequences. They had to prove that all would be patched and no longer open to exploitation. They didn't manage that. Instead, they set up a straw man saying that Russia and China could bring the US to its knees by using a few lines of code overnight. Panel, we told you in response to the first speaker that China and Russia are nowhere near capable to exploit the 0 days that the US uses, instead relying on simple hacking techniques like phishing emails on non-tech savvy politicians to get information. We proved to you 3 examples of where the world gets more violent whenever we where they no longer use 0 days, each independent of each other. Which is why we proudly stand under the team line. The 0 days vulnerabilities are powerful, unintrusive, non-violent tools which can save thousands of lives. So 3 questions in this debate. Firstly, is the NSA principally right? Secondly, who's most capable of handling 0 days? And thirdly, who is best at protecting people? So on the principle, note that literally their entire case is based on the team line that we believe the moral code of humanity should never be tampered with. This literally means second line is that they have an absolute principle that has zero barriers to it and that it never ends. So we say at the point where they're saying that murderers or terrorists should never have their safe space invaded because it involves personal information of them. No, thank you. We say that we just simply do not believe this and that all principles must have limits. The point where we told you that we're able to stop terrorist attacks under our side by spying on these people, and we said that we would specifically spy on people who are likely to be in these groups, such as people who send messages with the word bomb in it. We think that their principle falls down. What else did they tell you on principle? They told you that their issue was transparency. Now note that they whenever we questioned them on this in second, they couldn't break down, no thank you, the entire legitimacy of the NSA by saying that they make everything transparent. So what did they say? They said that we didn't give them a proper framework. Now let me read you out what we told you in first. We said that whenever they decide that doing so would protect security and save lives, they would do so. Ladies and gentlemen, the NSA does have a clear framework, no thank you, that leads it to release 80% of the 0 days that it finds currently to the public. We see that it only takes the 0 days which do not pose a threat to no thank you, the American people, but will be incredibly helpful at protecting them. Then they told us, they asserted that this would be available to all actors, and we're going to get on to how the other actors in this debate are not as good as exploiting or finding 0 days, so this point doesn't stand. So at the end of this, we see that their debate was headlined by a principle that was flawed, and throughout the debate they had contradictions to this, which means that we were the only side that were principally right. And thank you. If we go on to prove that the benefits outweigh the harms, we just do not care about this anyway, because we think that the lives of millions of people are so much more important than whatever moral principle they want to talk about.
Information.
Before I move on, yes.
If you care so much about the lives of civilians, why are you only patching some 0 days?
Right, okay, I'm going to get on to that now. So my second point is on who is most capable at handling 0 days. Now note that Team Singapore gave themselves a higher burden than they probably needed to in this debate. Whenever throughout their case, they've literally, every single response to what we've said is that no terrorist attacks are going to happen under our side, no one is ever going to get hurt because we release 0 days. Their entire case is predicated on the fact that they're literally going to fix everything. Whenever we say we need the capability to fight back with cyber warfare, they say no, because no one's going to attack you with cyber warfare whenever we patch every single vulnerability that exists in any tech system ever. So we've told you why the process of the NSA is legitimate, because in the cases where they see risk, whenever they see that Russia, North Korea, or China is going to find these 0 days, they will release them. No, thank you. Now what do we tell you on other countries and why they would not have the technical ability to access some of these 0 days that the US would? So we said that the US is the best country whenever it comes to its cyber capability, because it has an incredible amount of money that it can invest into these hackers who sit there and figure out how to do this. It also has one of the largest tech centers in the world, no thank you. At the point where you have California, which is full of people who know how technology works, full of people who spent their lives studying cyber warfare. We think that they would be better than other actors such as North Korea and China. Whereas they may have money, they don't have a massive population of people who are filled with literally hundreds of people who are able to come up with these 0 days vulnerabilities. We also see, no thank you, that because of Republican governments, we told you all of this in first, by the way, because of Republican governments, oftentimes the US feels the need to give the military way more money than it actually asks for. We told you, no thank you, that they gave the military 33% more money than it actually knew what to do with. And we would say that a lot of this would probably go towards the NSA. So we say that the US is probably the most capable nation at finding and exploiting these 0 days. So what does this mean? No thank you. It means that none of their case really stands up at the point that we can prove that there are some cases that the NSA should be allowed to keep these in the cases where they don't have any harms because North Korea hasn't found it. So they're on to who is most capable at using it and whether it's businesses or the NSA. Now in their first speech they gave us 2 criteria for this. They said that the businesses have both the incentive and the capability to deal with this. Now we told you both in first and second why this isn't true. So first of all, we said that, no thank you, oftentimes in outdated versions of software, they don't see the need to to fix this because they don't have as many customers there as they would in other ones. And we think that because a lot of the systems that people use don't necessarily have the most updated software, especially in the cases that we want to attack. And thank you, we point to North Korea, we point to China, we would say that we should be allowed, that invoking any help to release these. We also said then that they don't have the capability to thank you, because even if you can force companies to release an immediate patch, you cannot force every single person who's had that patch issued to them to actually implement it. They said that they can. They said that they can automatically issue it. But I would say that probably every single person in this room has got an update on their computer that says we need you to update this now. We need you in order to get the new version of our software. We say that probably all of us know from experience that this isn't true, and that was a lie that came out of the proposition bench. So then, thirdly, on who protects the most people, we gave you 3 cases where US lives are put in danger. We told you about terrorism, we told you about rogue states, and we told you about geopolitical adversaries. Now, what did they say? They told us that they'd be able to protect against terrorism. No, wait, sorry. They told us that we couldn't protect against terrorism because some terrorist attacks still happen. They said this in second. They told us that our burden was then to protect every single terrorist attack from happening. No, we don't have examples of where terror attacks didn't happen because they have to keep these success stories secret because they're the NSA. And so, because we have proven that we protect the most people, because we've proven that it is necessary, and their only response is violence and fighter jets, we have won this debate. So proud, so proud.
Thank you, and now we call the light speech.
We can't read terrorists' WhatsApp messages, then thousands of Pakistani children die in drone strikes. No response. If we can't spy on Russia, the independence of the Baltic states is threatened. They have no response. If we can't respond to China in a non-violent manner, we end up sending ships to the South China Sea and nuclear powers face each other down the barrel of a gun. No adequate response from Singapore. There is nothing more important than national security. There are a ton of tools the US government can use to protect itself, but all of them are violent. Many violate human rights. And ultimately, why would you choose bloody, invasive means of protecting yourself when you could use a code in a file software? That is what we propose and why we stand for our team line that zero-day vulnerabilities are powerful, unintrusive, non-violent tools that can save thousands of lives. The main question is to debate who effectively protects people. So, does the US's use of zero days effectively protect people? What did we tell you? And first, we told you that we protect people against terrorism through access to their communications, which are encrypted, and we are denied access to them under the status quo by tech companies. We told you first, we are protected against rogue states by attacking their vulnerable software, preventing Iran from having nuclear weapons and destroying North Korea's missiles. We told you in second, we are protected against geopolitical adversaries by gaining intelligence and being able to effectively target
details. Well, on the first one, they never provided analysis denying that we achieved prevention of terrorist attacks through this zero-day vulnerability. They just said, well, you can't protect against all of them. We've already explained why that is impossible and we don't need to stand behind it. So let's look at the balance there. On our side, lives are saved in exchange for the privacy rights of a few wealthy software developers. On their side, people are massacred in brutal shootings and bombings worldwide because we can't access our only way to gain intelligence on them. They conceded that the software broke states was vulnerable, proving that our attacks are effective and that these states are no threat because of this. We win on that because we're clearly then able to protect people from Iran's nuclear weapons and North Korea's missiles. So on hostile players, they told you Russia and China's capabilities were great and therefore risked security of the US. In first, we explained why this was not the case because of the amount of funding the US has, because of the specialists, because Russia is still struggling, because China is focusing on its economy. We explained how the best way to protect against attacks anyway was to make our weapons as strong as possible to A, deter people, and B, retaliate, and C, be constantly aware of just how capable our enemies are so that we can build up effective defenses against them. They also said that NSA wouldn't obey our criteria, and then when we asked why they would obey theirs instead, they said because we have a prop fiat. Well, panel, this debate has to go two ways. They either have to disobey both of us or obey both of us. On both circumstances there, what we have is effective defense, and what they have is ineffective defense of privacy that, by the way, is not as valuable as the right to life. So, because we protect people from terrorism and rogue states and geopolitical adversaries, we win this debate. As well as that, in terms of balancing the rights to privacy, well, what do we have? What happened in this debate? In their first speech, they conceded in a POI that they are happy for the FBI to force tech companies to release data. This means that they also are okay with violating privacy in the interests of national security. This means that they conceded the motion from the first because they agree with our premise, because they agree that exploiting things in the name of national security to gain information that is vital for the protection of the lives of the population is a perfectly valid and quite frankly useful thing to be able to do. So, because we so proudly stand under the team line that zero-day vulnerabilities are powerful, non-violent, unintrusive tools which can save thousands of lives, we are extremely proud to oppose.
Thank you, and now we welcome the last slide.
Don't let the previous speakers tell you otherwise. But Team Singapore have been incredibly clear. We responded down the bench to all of their claims. We responded when they asked us about rogue states because we explained to you why we protected against their cyber attacks. But I think it's important, don't let their shifty characterization fool you. It's important because they cannot on one hand say that China and Russia just don't know how to use computers, and on the other hand say we need to deter China and Russia because they're going to hack us. They need to choose which piece of characterization they're going to use in this debate. And they cannot on their side of the house continually use a policy that they didn't even define from the start. The fact that they allowed the NSA to define what was considered life-threatening or security suggests that a lot of their policies align around the status quo. And if in the status quo a significant amount of terrorist attacks are not stopped by zero-day vulnerabilities, because if they were as powerful as side opposition claimed they were, we would have been able to stop them. The fact that they didn't on their side of the house says a lot about their case. I want to take a walk through the two worlds that emerge at the end of this debate, and I want to show to you why the world of the proposition was significantly better. The world of the opposition was strange because they wanted to retreat in this debate, but I think what was crucial was they wanted to make this trade-off on behalf of the public. And the NSA, on their own, could literally use human beings who had lives that were important to trade off in this debate. To be very clear, Kenneth's material was untouched. He told you about the massive impacts of cyber attacks on the population, not just on a few concentrated individuals as they would like to claim, but literally entire cities, groups of people that freeze to death at night because they don't have access to heaters. On their side, they had absolutely no response to these people. The only response that we got then, apart from that, was a glib response that China and Russia just didn't know how to hack. Then what happens, for example, when China and Russia literally hack into advanced American voter softwares denying democratic votes? What happens when Russia hacks into Ukrainian nuclear reactors in the winter? What happens when China literally hacks into our cybersecurity systems? I think all of these suggest to us that China and Russia have capabilities of hacking that we need to stop. But I think more crucially, opposition in the world of opposition did not even respect the privacy of individuals. They had uncertain benefits. Listen to their language. They were more likely to stop terrorist attacks. But they didn't actually prove to us the uncertain benefits of their policy versus the very certain harms of the attacks on privacy on our side of the house. I want to make things very clear. In the world of the opposition, they do not stop military attacks because Isin already told you that the incentive behind these attacks was the military and industrial complex, nothing to do with zero-day vulnerability. So to be clear, opposition literally holds the entirety of cities hostage with these zero-day vulnerabilities. They have absolutely no response. So now let's transition to the world of the proposition. The world of the proposition protected individuals. And to be incredibly clear, all of the arguments about terrorism, we had other alternatives. I responded to this in second speaker. I said, why can't we use metadata analysis? At the very least, that is something that can be regulated against. That is something that people around the world would be able to protect themselves from. These are things that they did not respond to. Isin furthered this analysis. If you are required to use a zero-day vulnerability to stop an attack, that often means that you are probably a lone wolf that doesn't have as much chains or as much paper trails that would be required that uses a zero-day vulnerability to hack. I think more crucially, the world of the proposition protected individuals. We were all that recognized that it was wrong to put civilians up for hostage for uncertain benefits that they were not even able to come across. We were a world that was incredibly clear with our principles, that human beings cannot be used as human shields in the line of fire just because we thought that was a good idea for uncertain benefits. We were a world that was incredibly consistent with our principles. Our principle was very simple. Human beings ought not to be used as human shields in the line of conflict, but also that we ought to be able to protect dissidents around the world. This is a majority of the benefits on our side of the house, because the billions of people around the world who have no access to democracies in the United States are now calm and protected on our side of the house. We believe that the moral code of humanity should never be tampered with. We're very proud of this.